Okay. Right, so welcome back to our Srimad Bhagavatam session today. So we will begin by dedicating this presentation to our founder Acharya, Prabhupada, and will join us with Mangalacharan prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Gadati Swapadantam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sabetam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Shuratau Pangur Mama Manda Matirgati Vatsavasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohana Kundaranyo Kalpadrumadaha Srimatratnagada Simhasanasto Sriman Radha Srimagovinda Deva Rastadi Bihi Sevimano Smrani Sriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Statasmitaha Karshan Veno Sanekopir Gopinata Shristunaha Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Kavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Deve Pranamami Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatyadesh Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudhire Rastaprayeshu Patreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhagavati Naishtuti by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Nigamakaldalitam phalam Shikamukaram Vrittadrami Samhitam Vivanta Bhagavatam Yasammalayam Mukuraho Rasitapu Vibhavaha कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः नमः पङ्कजनाभाय नमः पङ्कजमालिने नमः पङ्कजनेत्राय नमस्ते पङ्कजाङ्गे त्वयि मे आनन्दविषय मतिर्मधुपतीयासकृत् रतिम् उद्वहददा गङ्गे भवगं Oh, Lord of sweetness, Madhupati, as the Ganga forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my Ratim constantly be drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Let my attraction be constantly drawn. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Shakti Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langaitim girim yatkripatamaham vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Ramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram. That's it. So Hare Krishna. So today we are doing chapter 15. The title is Pandavas Retire Timely. And we have already done 4 parts of this chapter, and today we will do the 5th part, and let's see if we are able to finish it today. So chapter 5, we cover, it is quite a number of things. It's very interesting. We have about 50 over verses, and each of those verses are, you can't cover it quickly. You have to go through the points. Sometimes some of them have stories. So therefore, we have gone up to 5 parts. So just a bit of recap what we've done previously. So we know this chapter began with Arjuna returning back uh, from Dwaraka. After 7 months of absence in Hastinapur, he returns back to Hastinapur and he reports to Yudishtira Maharaj. So Yudishtira Maharaj already saw him in a very, very despondent state, very, very sad. All the effulgence is lost, defeated, so full of tears. So in this way, uh, Arjuna, after being questioned by Yudhishthira Maharaj, Arjuna begins to speak. So this chapter begins like that. So Arjuna, first, before he speaks, Suta Goswami, he is the one narrating the story to the Naimisaranya forest sages. So in this way, he begins by how describing the state of Arjuna. So Arjuna, his eyes are tearing up and just barely choking, he begins to respond to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And he starts to say how uh, he begins to say how that personality, Supreme Lord Krishna, who was his dearmost friend, is no longer present on this earth. So he begins by telling all kinds of, first he says how he's been, brought to this state. So he talks about how, although he had so much of power, so much of virya, so much of strength, courage, intelligence, so he begins to recount the different situations of his life where, together with Krishna's presence and by Krishna's mercy, he was able to perform miraculous activities which couldn't be dreamed of by any mortal person. Even the demigods in heaven were astonished by some of the activities uh, carried out by Arjuna, all by the grace of Krishna. So that is Krishna Anubhava. Krishna begins to remember, Arjuna begins to remember various pastimes. He talks about, the burning of the Kandava forest, how he was able to defeat the demigods, and then he talks about how he went and fought the celestial demons, the Nivata Kavacha, 33 million of them, which even Indra could not defeat. But he alone was able to do this, all by the grace of Krishna. And then how he was able to, how Krishna was present in every situation of their lives, how Krishna saved them from Durvasa Muni's curse, how Krishna intervened in every situation, like in the time of Jarasanda's fight, how Jarasandha was able to be defeated simply by the blessings of Krishna. And how, of course, the Mahabharata war, how he could cross over the great ocean of Mahabharata war, which was infested by terrible aquatic creatures. Like, in the ocean, there are big creatures like whales and sharks. So in the same way, the Mahabharata war was like a sea, a great ocean, and in that ocean, there were great personalities like Bhishma, like Drona, like Karna, and Salya. So all of these personalities were great, but still, by the grace of Krishna, he was able to cross over this ocean together with the Pandavas. Then Arjuna remembers not only the greatness and the glory and the majesty, he also remembers the beautiful relationship that Krishna used to have with Arjuna. So, Hridaya Bandhu, how Krishna was the closest friend of his heart, how Krishna was extremely merciful to his devotees. Although Arjuna was treating Krishna just like a friend. So, as such, he would not be giving full respect to Krishna. So sometimes, they will be joking, sometimes he will be sarcastic to Krishna. So all this, Arjuna is remembering how Krishna was tolerating all these things, simply just like how a father would tolerate a son. So in this way, there was so much of loving reciprocation coming from Krishna, who was the supreme personality of Godhead. There was no reason for him to behave in that way. So costless mercy of the Supreme Lord. So Arjuna remembers all this. And Arjuna concludes also how in Krishna, finally, he tells Yudhishthira Maharaj how Krishna was no longer present on this earth. What you have feared, Yudhishthira Maharaj, has come to pass. The entire Rishi dynasty have left. So Krishna has removed the entire family of the Yadus. The Yadu dynasty has been removed. So in this way, as Arjuna was speaking about these pastimes, as he was remembering about Krishna, an amazing transformation took place. We heard about how this amazing transformation took place previous session. How when Krishna in the beginning of the narration, he was so despondent, there was no effulgence in him. He was, heartbroken. He was lost, feeling lost. But at the end of the narration, after speaking so much about Krishna, at the end of this, you could see the transformation happening in Krishna. In Arjuna regained back his gravity. He regained back his composure. And there was joy in his heart. And he was able to, because he was connecting to the pastimes of Krishna, he was connecting to remembering Krishna. So that was able to bring Arjuna out of his shoka or misery. So we will recap a little bit of that, what happened previously. So just a very quick recap of the last two verses which we covered last week, the previous session, right? Sutta Uvacha. So Sutta Goswami is recounting, thus being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord and in thinking of his lotus feet, Vishnu Krishna Pada Saroruham. Krishna Pada means the lotus feet. Saroruham means lotus. Krishna Pada. Pada means the feet. Jishnu means the supreme personality of God. So simply being absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord and in thinking of his lotus feet. So two things are necessary. How can we come out of difficulties? How can we come out of miseries? How can we lift our mind away from the tribulations of life? Two things are required. One is to meditate and being absorbed in Krishna's instructions. So where do we get Krishna's instructions? Krishna's instructions are found in the Bhagavad Gita, and also these same instructions are explained to us by our spiritual masters. So by following and being attached to those instructions, that's one part. The other part is to think of his lotus feet, to constantly meditate. What does that mean, thinking of his lotus feet? That means we should always, always, always be conscious that everything and whatever that we do is for the pleasure of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. It is for Krishna, everything that we do. So we have to put Krishna in every aspect of our lives. In this way, we can remember Krishna in everything, right? We are doing something, we are working, we are trying to, whatever, anything, we should be thinking, I'm doing this only for one main goal. I may have other smaller goals, but the main goal is I'm doing this for the pleasure of Krishna, or for the pleasure of my Guru Maharaj, or for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. So in this way, because the instructions of the spiritual masters and the instructions of the Acharya is directing us towards the pleasure of the Lord only. They understand more what the Lord requires, what gives pleasure to the Lord. So that is the understanding behind it. So these two things are needed. Arjuna, being deeply absorbed in the instructions of the Lord and thinking of his lotus feet, what happened to him? Arjuna's mind became pacified. So Arjuna was in a terrible situation, the worst situation in his life. Even before the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna was put into misery, right? He was put into illusion right before Bhagavad Gita was spoken. We heard, right, how we remember how Arjuna was feeling. He will describe in chapter 1 Bhagavad Gita, his limbs are shaking, his palms are sweaty, his skin is burning. He feels, extreme misery and extreme pain like no one has ever felt before. So, and then Bhagavad Gita was spoken, and his shoka, misery, was lifted. By the time they came to chapter 10, by chapter 7 already, Arjuna's uh, misery and all was gone already. So, Arjuna's mind, but this time, when Krishna left the world, Arjuna was put into a worse illusion. He was put into even more lamentation, right? But even that kind of lamentation was lifted simply by Arjuna remembering the instructions of the Lord and remembering the pastimes of the Lord, and in this way he was able to come out of it. Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination. Right? Arjuna's Vasudevan Angri. Arjuna's Vasudevan Angri Anudhyana. Anudhyana means very focused meditation. What was Arjuna doing? Arjuna was very focusedly meditating upon the lotus feet of Vasudeva. That's Krishna. Angri means the lotus feet, and Vasudeva. There are many, many different types of names. That's why I like to put the Sanskrit here, because it helps us to remember the different ways in which the lotus feet of the Lord is addressed, right? Vasudevangri. Before that, we heard about Vishnu Pada or Krishna Pada, Sarolukam, also lotus feet of the Lord. So different ways in which the lotus feet of the Lord is addressed. So it's nice to remember that. At least one or two, if you can remember. So Arjuna's meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord rapidly increased his devotion. So that is what it does. By us meditating upon the instructions of the Lord, that's why hearing Srimad Bhagavad Gita, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is very powerful. It has the ability to increase our devotion, right? That's why we say in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we recite the verses. We say, what's that verse? We say the second one. नारायण नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नास्तापरायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtiki. So simply by serving the pure devotee and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam constantly, it increases our devotion. Right? So the same point is mentioned here also. And as a result, all the trash in his thoughts are removed. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, after remembering the instructions, after meditating so much on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, remembering the pastimes of the Lord, what happened to Arjuna? He became powerful again, right? So how he became powerful? He possessed spiritual assets, Brahma Sampatya. That's what spiritual activities do. That's what bhakti will give us. By performing devotional service, beginning by hearing, chanting, and then remembering and serving. So in this way, we build our spiritual assets. Our spiritual strength becomes stronger. So because of his possessing spiritual assets, Brahma Sampatya, what is the result? Doubts of duality, Dvaita Samsaya, were completely cut off. What does this mean? The doubts of duality. The doubts of duality means all our doubts are cut off. When we develop spiritual strength by hearing and chanting, right, and remembering and serving, in this way, our doubts become removed, particularly doubts with regards to duality. What is duality? Duality is the two problems of our life. We are always, what is meant by duality? Like happiness and distress, always opposite things. Gain and loss, night and day, right? So uh, in this way, we are like, I like something so much. But when we like something so much, together with it also will come, I hate something so much. When somebody likes something, automatically there is dislike. When somebody loves something, automatically there is hate. So this is what is called duality, right? And that is one of our root problems why we are in this material world, because this material world is a world of duality. So because we are attached to duality, therefore we are living in the material world of duality. So that's our problem. And that duality cut off, completely cut off, simply by our spiritual understanding. So to help us understand how it happens, this is our jiva. This is the jivatma, spirit soul, right? Now, when the jiva is in the spiritual sky, what happens, right? He has a choice of either serving the Supreme Lord, right? Or he becomes averse to the spiritual law. When somebody comes and tells us, oh, there is this person with this name, and he's so wonderful. All kinds of wonderful things they speak about that person to you. What will be in our mind? There are two possibilities that can arise. Either we become immediately attracted to that person. Wow, so wonderful. I wish I could meet that person. I wish I could be that person. So we will start thinking that way, or we can become neutral, right? It's okay, okay, whatever you say. But in that neutrality, actually, it's actually averse. Why? Are they neutral? Why can't they like that person? Why can't they be attached to that person? So if they are not attached to that person, that means they are averse. So therefore, that's the problem. So the jiva, either when he develops icha means uh, like, that means I like something, attraction. Icha means attraction or attachment. When the jiva develops attraction or attachment, right? Together with that, there is also dvesha. Dvesha means aversion. Hmm. So why is there aversion? When there is aversion towards Krishna, then automatically dvesha is already there. So with dvesha comes icha and dvesha. So this is the duality which makes us fall down from the spiritual world. When we have duality like this, icha and dvesha, when we have very strong likes and dislikes, right, then it makes us fall down into the spiritual world. Because the spiritual world is a world of duality. So we become compatible. While we are in the spiritual world, when we have icha and dvesha, we cannot be compatible with the spiritual energy. So therefore, the Lord creates a separate playground for us, where that playground is compatible with our mentality of duality, this icha and dvesh, this attraction and aversion. So therefore, this material world is like this ocean, right? And we have fallen into that ocean because of this icha and dvesha. But in order to facilitate this icha and dvesha even further, to help the jiva, because the jiva wants this. So in order to facilitate this, right? The nature of this material world is such that it is illusory. It is the illusory energy of the Lord. And we are a small spark. What happens when the small spark falls into the ocean? This ocean of material energy, right? It becomes covered completely. So this spirit spark, which is coming from the spiritual world, when it enters into the material energy, it becomes covered by this, what is called moha. Moha means illusion. And this illusion exists only because of duality. This duality is not there, and there is no basis for this illusion to exist, right? So this illusion is necessary for us to forget Krishna, for us to forget about the spiritual world, and for us to indulge in our icha and dvesha, for us to focus upon our attachment, attraction, and our aversion, to put our mind into it, right? So that we can, because we think, right, in illusion, we think we can enjoy this. So therefore, this is what happens. And what holds this illusion together? In order for us to have a tangible illusion, we need ahamkara, which is our false ego. Therefore, we forget. Therefore, we forget that we are spirit soul, and we think that we are this body. Okay, I'm born in this world, I'm born in this family, I'm born in this society, I'm born in this country. I have a certain, nature because so therefore we become conditioned, and we actually forget that we are spirit soul, that we have nothing to do with this material nature. Everything is it's something like this. It's like when a drama, when we have a drama or a movie actor, a movie star, when he acts into a movie, he takes on a completely different role, right? And sometimes we identify that actor according to the role. So when we see that person, or we say, oh, this person acted as this, but we forget the real person's name. And the actor also sometimes, when he's so engrossed in acting in that particular role, he also sometimes forgets and he really gets into the role, right? So that idea of forgetting our real self is that we are spirit soul, and then thinking that we are this role, whatever this body, this role that we have here, right? Thinking that that's all that we are, that is called ahamkara, false ego. So, and false ego ties our illusion like this. And this material nature has also, we are also subjected to the three modes of material nature. So while we are in this material world has three qualities. Sattva guna, Raja guna, Tama guna. Sattva guna is mode of goodness, Raja guna is mode of passion, Tama guna is mode of ignorance. So it is always changing, changing, changing. And because our body and our mind, our intelligence is also made up of material energy, this body, mind, and intelligence also has these three modes. So therefore, the spirit soul is stuck in this body with this three modes of nature. Hmm. So that's what's happening to all of us. And accordingly, we will act in a certain way. Somebody who's in the mode of passion, they will be very, very passionate about everything. Passionate characters, So and some people and the way and whatever they like to eat will also be very passionate food, very spicy or very sour or very, very sweet. Everything is in a high. The volume is increased at a high. So that is passionate person. And somebody who's in the mode of ignorance, he just wants to forget, he just wants to sleep, he just wants to escape into his own world. So that kind of nature, right? So like that, but it keeps changing. Sometimes you are like this, sometimes you are like that. So that's what happens. And in this way, we go through different bodies in our existence in this material world. But when we get spiritual knowledge, so that's what Arjuna was. Arjuna was put into this illusion just to show an example. What happens? So Arjuna represents all of us. Even in before Bhagavad Gita was spoken, Arjuna also represented the human beings in this world. So all those beings in this world, we are also sometimes engulfed by these waves of material nature. The waves hit us. The waves of this ocean toss us through in our life. So we go through our difficulties in life, ups and downs, through the three modes of nature, through our icha and dvesha, attachment and aversion. So in this way we go through, right? But if we want to come out of this, so therefore, if somebody throws, we are tossed into this ocean, somebody throws us a lifeline. So this is what bhakti can do for us. So Arjuna, by following the processes of bhakti, by remembering Krishna, by following the instructions of Krishna, and by speaking about Krishna, so Ravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam became transformed. So I'm trying to show what happened to Arjuna and what can happen to us also if we also take up this process. So if we take up bhakti, right, and this bhakti applies on this stage here, right, what happens? This process is called sadhana bhakti, the beginning of bhakti, right? We practice the bhakti has two levels. There is sadhana bhakti and there is bhava bhakti. So we begin with sadhana bhakti by following the four regulatory principles, by taking up a spiritual master, by chanting 16 rounds, in this kind, and hearing and chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Pujanam, by offering prayers. These are all bhakti activities, devotional activities to the Lord. So what it does is it gradually helps us, right? It helps us to transform. How does it transform? It removes our moha. It removes our illusion. How it removes our illusion? Because we get transcendental knowledge. Krishna injects transcendental knowledge, right? The Guru gives us transcendental knowledge. When we hear, we begin to understand from Bhagavad Gita what is the nature of ourselves. Who are we actually? What is the nature of the world? What is the nature of our interactions with one another? Who is God? What is the material creation? How does time work? So when we get all this actual knowledge, right, our moha, our illusion, we begin to see the world, we begin to see everything, we begin to see every situation with the eyes of scripture, with the eyes of knowledge. Jnana chakshush. Chakshush means vision. Jnana means knowledge. So we begin to see everything with jnana chakshush or veda chakshush through the eyes of scripture, right? And our moha illusion disappears. And when our illusion disappears, what happens, right? When our illusion is removed, we have to work on our false ego also. So false ego also is removed because we can understand that we are not this body. When we can understand actually we are not this body. We can actually understand we are spirit soul. And spirit soul means we are very, 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 very tiny. In Bhagavad Gita, right, we hear how the spirit soul is very, very small. The Mundaka Upanishad, I think it's the one that mentions, if you take the tip of your hair and if you take your one piece of hair and the tip of the hair, you splice it into 100 pieces, and you take that one of that 100 pieces and you again splice it into 100 pieces, that is the dimension of the soul, all of us. So we are actually that small, right? So accordingly, our ego also should be that small. We should understand we are that small. Our body may be very large, but actually we are in comparison. Therefore, we are known as Anu. In Sanskrit, the word Anu also refers to the atom. Atom is very, very small. We cannot see. So Anu also refers to atom, but Anu also refers to the spirit soul. We are very, very small. Whereas the Lord is Vibhu, cannot even be measured. So we are very, very small and we cannot even see, whereas the Lord is very, very large, cannot even be measured. So if we can understand this, if we can remember this constantly, then we can become humble. And then our false ego will be removed, right? And when the false ego is removed, then what happens? All the three modes of nature, the Icha and the Dvesha is also removed. So our aversion, we become so averse to something. Oh, I hate this, I don't like this, right? So that is not helpful in spiritual life. We should try to have an equal equilibrium, right? We should not hate something too much. We should not like something too much either. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, beginning itself, Matra Sparsastu Kaunteya Sitoshana Sutta Dukkada. He says, do become equipoised in both happiness and distress. No, we could understand in distress we should be equipoised. We mustn't become too, lost in the distress. But why happiness also we must become equipoised? Because that is the point of balance. That is the point where that is called yoga. Because both illusion, both happiness and distress is both illusion. It's happening, right? We must understand that. So when we become balanced like that, then our icha and our dvesha is also removed. So this is what bhakti helps us to. It helps us to remove our aversion and our uh, 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 attraction to the material things. When that is removed, then there is no more basis for the three modes of nature. Illusion is removed, ahankar is removed, and dvesha, aversion and attachment are removed. So then there is no more basis to hold the three modes of nature. So therefore, the three modes of nature becomes removed. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. The three modes of nature is removed, and Arjuna was placed in transcendence, in remembrance of Krishna. So, so that's what bhakti can do for us, simply by removing all this, right? And then when Arjuna is placed in transcendence, sadhana bhakti is now finished. Now the bhakti goes into higher gear, the next level. Remember, I mentioned there are two levels of bhakti, sadhana bhakti and bhava bhakti. Bhava bhakti begins from the point of transcendence. When one has already broken free from the three modes of nature, what does one do? The question is something like this, when somebody goes to prison, we have citizens. Sometimes the citizens are put into prison. So in the prison, sometimes we are first class prisoner, second class prisoner, third class prisoner, according to the three modes of nature, right? Sometimes someone is in the mode of goodness, someone is in the mode of passion, someone is in the mode of ignorance. So this is something like being like first class prisoner, second class prisoner, third class prisoner. But still prisoner, because it's still the material modes. But when the person comes out of prison, that is called liberation, moksha, transcendence. He comes out of prison. Oh, I'm out of this. But what does he do once he's out of prison? If he doesn't understand higher activity, if he doesn't know what he should do with his life, which can make him happy, right? Then he may again do the same things, which again brings him back to prison because he doesn't know what else to do. So, but when one practices bhakti, and what happens is he knows he can do even greater bhakti. So that's when Bhava Bhakti begins. Bhava Bhakti means bhakti in transcendence. So the bhakti process becomes increased, and that Bhava Bhakti begins to give us ecstasy, ananda, and it will explode into Prema Bhakti. When Prema Bhakti happens, that is full bliss, full ananda. So when the Jivatma gets full ananda and full Prema, right? Prema Bhakti level, was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death. So that's what happens. Asambhavaha. No more chance of becoming entangled in duality anymore. So this is our insurance. If we don't want to get entangled back in duality, back to Icha and Dvesha, and back to this material world, the only insurance for that is Prema Bhakti. Liberation is not enough. If we get liberated only, what happens? Temporarily, our Icha and Dvesha is removed, but because we don't have positive engagement, again, after a long period of time, because we have nothing better to do, we do not have any other positive engagement, again we may develop Dvesha and Icha. Aversion, again we may develop aversion towards Krishna, and when we develop aversion, we will also get attachment to material world, and we will again come back to this material world and become conditioned. So the only guarantee that we will never come back to this material world ever again, even after liberation, is to develop Prema Bhakti. So that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came down, and he came down bringing the highest type of Prema Bhakti. There are different types of Prema Bhakti in the spiritual world. There is Vaikuntha Prema, there is Dwaraka Prema, there is Mathura Prema. So different levels of Prema. But Prema is already Prema Bhakti. But he brought the highest taste, the highest ecstasy from the Goloka Vrindavan, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came down to give that to everybody. So now we can understand how fortunate we are to get that, the highest treasure of the spiritual world. Therefore, Narottam Das Thakur sings, Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana. So, Golokera Premadana. the greatest treasure of Goloka, which is Krishna Prema, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought it down to material world and he is distributing it as Harinama Sankirtana. So simply by taking up the process of Harinama Sankirtana, we can come to this level of Prema Bhakti if we follow the process correctly, right? So that is what our goal should be, right? Prema Pumarto Mahan. The goal of life is not liberation. The goal of life is to use this life to develop prema bhakti, to come to this level. That is what life is for, right? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says, Prema Pumarto Mahan. The goal of life is to develop this, Krishna Bhakti, because that guarantees, even after we go to the spiritual world, we will not come down again. Because with Prema Bhakti, one doesn't want anything else other than Krishna. One is madly in love, madly attached to Krishna. There is no room for anything else, right? Out of his own free will, not Krishna forced this, right? Out of his own free will, he has developed this prema bhakti, and therefore he's always together with Krishna. Never, never, never comes down to this material. So Prabhupada says, by the grace of the Lord, a pure devotee is at once raised to the place of the Absolute. And there is no chance of the devotees becoming materially entangled again in conditioned life. So that is the guarantee, right? Prabhupada again mentions this. So one is not able to feel the presence of the Lord in all circumstances until one is endowed with the required transcendental vision made possible by devotional service prescribed in the revealed scripture. So we cannot come to this point, we cannot come to this prema bhakti. In order to come to Prema Bhakti, we must develop understanding that everywhere there's Krishna, everywhere there's divinity. At least we must come to the point of liberation, right? But we cannot begin to see the Lord everywhere unless we unless we get transcendental vision. How can we get Divya Chakshus? How can we get this Jnana Chakshus? We can get it only, it is made possible only by devotional service as prescribed in the revealed scripture. So we have to follow it exactly. It is a science. We cannot afford to follow devotional service according to our own whims. Oh, I think it's like this. Oh, this is my emotion. No, we have to follow exactly as described in scripture, such as Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Nectar of devotion. So the acharyas reveal all these signs very carefully. So we have to study these three books, right? uh, Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion, Srimad Bhagavatam, and also Chaitanya Charitamrita. Actually, even one of these books is enough, but it increases our understanding more and more as we hear more and more. We have our whole life. Bhagavad Gita is only 700 verses. We can finish that in probably one day if we study fully, right? What are we going to do for the rest of our lives? So we should hear Bhagavad Gita again and again, and each time we hear, it's like it opens a new page. The same verse opens a deeper meaning. We hear it again it opens another deeper meaning. So same thing with Bhagavatam, 18,000 slokas. So we can spend our life hearing about it again and again, right? So Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion, so all this tells us exactly what to do. Okay, now we go back to our story. So upon hearing Lord Krishna's returning to his abode, and upon understanding the end of the Yadu dynasty's earthly manifestation, so now we go back to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Sutta Goswami now is narrating, after describing what happened to Arjuna, now he's now going to say what happens to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Because Yudhishthira Maharaj was listening also to what Arjuna was saying, and he saw what happened to Arjuna. So upon hearing Lord Krishna, so when he heard, because Yudhishthira Maharaj was already worried, is this the reason? Because he saw the different situations of Kali Yuga, and he already knew the warning given by Narada Muni. Krishna may be leaving very soon, and he was feeling, oh, how can I live without Krishna? And when Arjuna confirmed this, immediately he understood Krishna is no longer there, and upon understanding the end of the Yadu dynasty, no one is there anymore. The entire Dwaraka has even sunk into the waters, right? Maharaj Yudishtira at that point decided to follow the Lord. So because he was the eldest of the Pandavas, so therefore he had to set the direction. And Prita is Kunti Devi, Kunti Maharani. And we call her Kunti. Actually, the word Kunti came later because Kunti comes from the word Kunti Boja. She was an adopted child to the Kunti Boja dynasty. So the kingdom was Kunti Boja, and usually the princesses are also given a name based on the name of their father. So Kunti Boja's daughter became Kunti, right? And but when she was born, the name given to her in her birth, that the name is Prita. Prita is the name when she was born. So Prita here refers to Kunti Maharani. So sometimes Arjuna is also known as Partha. Partha means son of Prita. So Prita, after overhearing Dhananjaya, who's Dhananjaya? Dhananjaya is Arjuna. The word Dhananjaya means one who wins wealth. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is known as Dhananjaya sometimes. The one who brought wealth. How did he bring wealth? Because during the Rajasuya sacrifice held by Yudhishthira Maharaj, the Pandavas went to all different parts of the world to bring wealth. So, and Arjuna was the one to bring the most, and he was given the title Dhananjaya, bringer of wealth. So it's interesting how this particular word is used to describe Arjuna. So Arjuna, he brought transcendental wealth this time. First time he brought material wealth only for the Rajasuya sacrifice. But this time he brought transcendental wealth of Krishna consciousness to Yudhishthira Maharaj's court. And Kunti Maharani, she was overhearing everything Arjuna was saying. So Prita, after overhearing Dhananjaya's telling of Nasam Yadunam, of the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, Bhagavad Gatim, of the disappearance of the Lord. So after hearing about the destruction of the Yadu dynasty and where Krishna has gone to, you see, that's interesting. Bhagavad Gatim. It didn't say Krishna's death. It says the first reference used here is Krishna has gone someplace else. The word Gati means he has gone somewhere. So it's not that Krishna has died. So Krishna has, yes, materially it looks like he has died, but he actually has gone somewhere. So we will hear more about that. So after hearing this, she also began to engage herself in Ekanta Bhakta Bhagavati Aduk Saje. What is Ekanta? Ekanta means single-minded focus. No more part-time, nothing. Single-minded, full-time, single-minded focus. Focus on what? Eka. Eka means one. Single, right? Single focus of bhakti. Bhakti who? Devotional service to Bhagavati, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who is that? Aduk Sajay, another name of Krishna. Adok Sajay here means the transcendental one who is transcendental, who cannot be, who is beyond everything. So Kunti Maharani, in other words, fully focused herself into devotional service, right? Nivesh, with full attention, Niveshita Atma, not only Ekanta Bhakti, that means pure devotional service, but with Niveshita Atma, full concentration, and thus gained release from the cause of material existence. Kunti Maharani also, she, she went back to Godhead after she followed up this process of devotional service. We will speak about in more detail what Yudhishthira Maharaj did exactly. But before that, Sutta Goswami is summarizing a little. So he's saying the supreme unborn, Aja. Krishna is also known by the word Ja. Ja means unborn. Jatam. Jatam means, the word jata means to take birth. Ajatam means never to take birth. So Krishna is known as Ajaha, one who never takes birth. But although he never takes birth, but still he took birth. So that means we have to understand that birth is simply Yogamaya. It is not a real birth. It is simply, it looks like he took birth. Just like, when drama, this is all like in a drama. So when an actor, it looks like the actor took birth or the actor came here or the actor entered, sometimes Tamil movies, in those days we used to see this Rajinikanth Tamil movie. They will introduce Rajinikanth. They won't just introduce Rajinikanth just like that. If you've seen Rajinikanth movies, they will introduce him first. They will show the feet, and then they will put all the stars and all the special music, and then they will introduce step by step by step. So therefore, but that's not the first time Rajinikanth is coming. He has come before in other movies. So although in that movie it looks like he's appearing for the first time, but it's not like he's never been there before. So in the same way, the Lord, he may appear to take birth. This was described in our previous sessions, just like the sun. The sun looks like it takes birth every morning. Every morning at dawn, the sun rises in the east. It looks like the east has given birth to the sun. But that's not true. It just looks like that. Actually, the sun is eternal. So in the same way, the Lord is eternal. He is actually Ajaha, never takes birth. But he appears like as if he's taking birth, right? Due to Yoga Maya potency, due to his bewildering energies. So Lord Krishna caused the members, so using the same bewildering technique, Lord Krishna caused the members of the Yadu dynasty relinquish their bodies. And thus he relieved the Bhuva Bharam, the Bharam of the earth. Bhu means earth, Bharam means the burden, that heavy, terrible burden of the earth. So actually that's what Krishna came for. Many reasons why Krishna came for, right? Paritranam sadhunam, to give pleasure to his devotees, to give pleasure to his pure devotees, right? And to bring them all back with him, right? And it also paritranam sadhunam vinashaya duskritam, to destroy the miscreants, to kill all the demons. So that reason is mentioned over here, because the earth was being plagued by so many demonic warriors, so many demonic personalities, too many of them. So to kill them, Krishna came, and during his childhood pastimes, he killed most of the major demons. Kamsa, Vritasura, Trinavrita, Dhenukasura, all these different demons, very, very powerful demons, he killed them all. And then he created the Mahabharata war, where he killed the rest of the Kshatriyas who were behaving like demons. They were so powerful, but they were not following the Brahmanas fully. So therefore, they had to be killed. Otherwise, because Kali Yuga was about to come, if they were still alive, then it will create havoc, and Bhuma Devi couldn't tolerate it. So therefore, Krishna came to eliminate everybody in the Mahabharata war. But in the Mahabharata war, there was one group of people who were not killed, who were also very powerful, Kshatriyas. And that was Krishna's own family members, Krishna's own dynasty, the Vrishnis, because they did not take part fully. Only one Akshawini of the Vrishnis fought in the Mahabharata war. The rest of them were still there. And they were extremely powerful. They could not be defeated. Each one of them were very, very powerful, right? So Krishna understood, yes, if I want to wrap up my pastimes, I cannot leave any of them here, because after that, then again, Bhumi Devi will still have problem. And therefore, he created the situation in which they were all killed. So Krishna did all this. We told the story in our previous session, how the Vrishni dynasty, the Bhoja dynasty was cursed. The Yadu dynasty was cursed. Two curses. One is the curse of Gandhari, and the other is the curse of the sages. So all this both happened. Krishna used this opportunity, and he said, okay, curse, okay, I'll use this opportunity as a curse to remove all my family members. Okay, enough, because all of them were devatas also. Many of them were devatas, and they came here and they behaved the same way like how they would behave in heaven. They started enjoying, they started to drink wine and everything. All their enemies were destroyed, so they were extremely happy. So this drinking of wine only caused the destruction of the dynasty. So Krishna wanted to prove a point. Krishna likes to come with style, and he likes to go with style also. So when he came to this material world, he came with style. He was born in a jail. So that was interesting. Krishna likes to shake everything when he comes into something. And the whole the whole country was in high alert because Kamsa was, after the babies. He wanted to kill all the babies. But somehow he managed to get born. And not enough to stay there, he was transferred from Mathura jail to Goloka Vrindavan in the middle of the night under storm, right? And so this kind of situation. So he came with style, and as he is leaving, he's also going to leave with style. So what happened? All the Vrishni dynasties, they came to Prabhash Kshetra. Lord Krishna, he wanted, okay, the time is now right. Okay, everybody, Kali Yuga is about to come. All the terrible signs of Kali Yuga was seen. And then Krishna and Balaram both convinced the king, Ugrasena. It's all these signs are happening. We should all go to a holy place and we should do some rituals. So they went to Prabhash Kshetra, which was nearby in Dwaraka. And in Prabhash, it was by the seashore. And in Prabhash Kshetra, they performed some rituals for several days. So when they have rituals, they will set up camps and tents and everything. And in the rituals they will do in the morning. In the evening, they will have some fun. So, many tournaments and shows and things. They will have parties. These are all Kshatriyas, remember, very, very highly passionate people. And but along and while they were doing this, they sometimes used to get drunk. They would take the Varuni beverage and they will get drunk, and they will start, when they get drunk, they lose control of their ability to tolerate. What does drinking do? What does intoxication do? It destroys tapasya, isn't it? So because they lose they lost their tapasya, their tongue become loosened. You know, it's very dangerous when the tongue becomes loosened. We are very careful with our tongue, with what we say. Because when we say something which we are not guarded, that can cause a lot of problems. In Bahasa Malaysia, we have peribahasa, right? Kerana mulut badan binasa. Because of the tongue, we can kill our own body. So when somebody is intoxicated, the control of the tongue becomes very loose. So one Kshatriya started to say something sarcastic to another Kshatriya. And that Kshatriya, because he also lost his tapasya, he became very angry and he started to attack the other Kshatriya. So in this way, they started attacking each other. And then, when a drunken party starts attacking one another, the entire bunch will start fighting each other. So the whole camp started fighting each other. And the fight became so bad that because they were so drunk, they couldn't even recognize each other. They couldn't recognize father, mother, uncle, auntie, child. And they couldn't even recognize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They couldn't recognize Balaram. They couldn't recognize Krishna. They were so intoxicated. Intoxicated with liquor, intoxicated with their anger, intoxicated with the false ego. And they were in illusion. And just to facilitate, that was the curse of the sages. The curse of the sages, there would be, there's an iron ball which was grind and destroyed, and that iron powder started to enter into the grass nearby. So that story we already mentioned last session. I will not repeat that story again. But the point is, the iron which was cursed by the sages started to be absorbed by the grass. There's a special type of grass. Grass can be very sharp. We have experience in Malaysia. We have lalang. You go to take the lalang, you can use the lalang to draw blood. You just slice the lalang like that on somebody. It can cut the skin, right? There is also some types of grass which the cows eat, the napier grass. That grass is also very sharp. It can cut you. You put your hand, you pull, your hand can get cut. So grass has the power to cut. So how it got the power? From this pastime. So this grass became very powerful, very strong, and like iron because it absorbed the iron from the earth. And for Krishna, some of these Kshatriyas, they were so upset, they started to pluck some of this grass and they used it as weapons to attack each other. So in this way, they killed each other by Krishna's plan. So in this way, he relinquished the Bhuva Bharam, the burden of the earth. So Sutta Goswami is describing, don't worry, what happened here is nothing bewildering, right? So this is what Krishna can do. He is Swarat. He is totally independent and he can use any situation to achieve what he wants. Sutta Goswami describes this action was like picking out a thorn with a thorn. So both are the same to the controller. So sometimes, when we get a thorn, when we are walking, we get pricked by a thorn, and it's not easy to take out the thorn. So sometimes it gets stuck inside our skin. So how to take out the thorn? We need to take something sharp in order to pierce the skin a little to take out the thorn, correct? It's like a splinter. Sometimes we get splinter in our hand. That's what we do. So we take another thorn to pluck the thorn which is stuck in our skin. So in this way, Krishna used this situation. He used one Yadava to kill another Yadava, right? So he used another Vrishni member, another family member to kill another family member. So he's trying to show how intoxication can destroy dynasties. Intoxication can destroy families. Intoxication can destroy even the world. Imagine, one power controls nuclear weapons, another power controls chemical weapons. If they become intoxicated either with liquor or with pride, then it's easy for them to lose control of their guard. And just one mistake, one thing to happen, and an entire destruction can happen, right? So Krishna is giving a warning. So Prabhupada says, for the Supreme Lord, both asuras and the demigods are equal. But the demigods are obedient to the Lord, whereas the asuras are not. So Krishna, he sees them equally. So one thorn as another thorn. So therefore, he wants to remove all of them and bring them all back to leave the earth. So we have to understand this very nicely. So help us understand, Sutta Goswami continues. The Supreme Lord relinquished the body which he manifested to diminish the Bhubara, just like a magician. After Krishna arranged for the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, he also relinquished his body. So he also left. So how he left was very interesting. That story is narrated in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna arranged so that, the same iron which killed all the other, the other Yadavas, the same iron, it was concentrated and it was swallowed by a fish in the sea. And one hunter shot the fish, and when he was cutting the fish open, inside the stomach of the fish, he found uh, this ingot of iron, this block of iron inside the fish. This is the iron that was cursed by the sages, the Brahmanas, when Samba tried to make fun of the Brahmanas. So this was narrated previously. So anyway, this iron, this hunter which he found, he took this iron and he made it into an arrowhead. So he used it as an arrowhead. So he was out hunting, and when he was out hunting, Krishna was sitting there at one point in behind the bushes, and he was sitting in a way where his feet was up. when sometimes we sit, we put our one leg on top of another leg. So like that, Krishna was putting one leg on top of the other leg, and one feet was the soles of his feet was revealed, and because the feet was reddish in color, uh, through the bushes, the hunter was hunting for a deer, and he happened to see something very reddish. He thought it was something like a deer, so he shot an arrow, and that arrow which had that arrowhead, that made from that metal iron, it went and pierced Krishna's foot. Krishna's foot, and Krishna used that as an excuse. So that Krishna used that as an excuse to leave the body, to go. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, it will be described how Krishna rose from the earth in his own same body, and he flew across the sky and went back to the spiritual world. So that is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto. So here you can see the picture. This picture, Krishna from the body of, he left behind a material body, but his current existing body, the same body he was in, he flew upwards, but he left behind a material body just to treat the atheist, just to give an excuse for the atheistic people. So this is described by Sutta Goswami. So he's like a magician. He relinquished the body which he manifested to remove the bhubara, just like a magician. How is that? Sometimes we have magic shows. We see this kind of magic shows. This is a magician, Harry Houdini. So you know what he's doing? He puts a lady inside a box, and he cuts the box into two. He cuts the box into two, and it looks like the lady has died. And he separates the box also, right? It's like this picture. So anyway, and so when he separates the box, it looks like the lady has died. Later, he will join back the box, and the lady comes back alive. So it's just a trick. So therefore, in Bhagavad Gita also, we have the same point, so that devotees do not become bewildered, right? Krishna behaves like this to bewilder people. He wants to give excuse for people who want to remain atheistic. Because Krishna's promise to the jivas who came to this material world is that he will not interfere in their free will. So to keep that promise that he will not interfere in their free will, right? So therefore he has to perform this kind of activities sometimes, just to give an excuse for the atheistic people to not accept Krishna. Because otherwise it's too obvious. Krishna is obviously the personality of Godhead. His activities, his behavior, everything. So, but sometimes when he behaves like this, he creates a doubt in people. So for people who want to doubt, they can hold on to that doubt and they can go on with their materialistic life. But for the pure devotees, for those who are serious, Krishna gives many warnings, right? Here in Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami is warning us, this is just like a magician act. In Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says, Avajahananti mam muddha manusim tanum ashritam. This is in chapter 9, verse 11. So it means only the fools regard me as an ordinary person. So only foolish people will fall for that trick. They will think Krishna is not is just a normal person. Look what he left a body behind. How can he be anything great? How can he be the supreme personality of Godhead? He left a body. So just to people, Krishna is telling you are reading Bhagavad Gita. It's not for you to be tricked. You can understand that this is just a trick, right? So don't be a fool. Fools Buddha, they can think like this, right? Just like this, we can see this kind of magic show, right? So this is just a trick. And he gives the warning again in Bhagavad Gita, verse 7, chapter 7. Amjaktam yaktim apannam manyate mam abhuddhayaha aram bhavam ajaranto mama vyayam anuttamam. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly, that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before. Some people may also think like that. Oh, Krishna left the body, therefore, his form and everything is just temporary. Actually, the Supreme Lord is impersonal. So there is the Buddha who will think Krishna is an ordinary person. There are also the impersonalists who will think that Krishna is just whatever Krishna's form is just temporary and is material. Actually, he's all just Brahman only, the Brahma Jyoti. He has no form, no qualities, nothing. So the Mayavadis may think like that. But to again warn us not to fall into that trap, Krishna also gives this verse 7:24. Intelligent men who do not know me perfectly, right, think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. So directly he's telling, if you think that Krishna is Brahman and just to come to this earth he took the form of Krishna, then that person is Muddha, unintelligent, because he doesn't know Krishna perfectly. That means he's been covered by the Maya energy. Why they're called Mayavadi. So Krishna directly gives that statement in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is for the serious devotee. It gives all the necessary understanding for us to not fall into the traps set in the Vedic scriptures. So due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. So Krishna's position, and then Sutta Goswami continues, it's like a magician, he apparently relinquishes. The word dahyat is used. Dahyat means it looks like he gave up. It looks like, apparently, right? Not real. That means it's not real. So the specific use of the Sanskrit words here indicates that. He apparently let go one body to accept different ones, like the fish incarnation and others, like Matsya, So when Krishna came before as Matsya, he came just for a specific purpose to save the Vedas and to save the king, Swayambhuva Manu, and also one or two other things you can see to destroy the Sankachuda demon and a few other things like that. So just for that purpose, Matsya came, and after that, he just left that body and disappeared. So just like a magician, the word magician is specifically used here. He apparently, it looks like he gave up one body, except different bodies. It looks like that, right? But that's not true. So we'll hear about that. Prabhupada says in this verse, the particular word tate, tate means eternally accepted. Krishna, when he comes and takes a form, every form of Krishna is eternal, right? There are two exceptions. One is Mohini Murti. Mohini Murti is not eternal form. It's a temporary material form. And another form, I forgot the other form. One is Mohini Murti. So, but every other form of Krishna, Matsya, Kurma, Narsimha, Rama, Parashuram, everything else is eternal. That means these forms are still there in some other place, in the spiritual world. They come in the material world for a short while, then they disappear. They go back to the spiritual world. They're always there in the spiritual world. They don't even, right? So in this verse, the particular word date here, the Sanskrit word, it means eternally accepted. He didn't use the word ditva. Ditva means temporarily accepted. So they use date. So that applies for Krishna. So we can understand that all these forms are always existing. God does not create the fish incarnation. He is eternally having such a form, and the appearance and disappearance of such an incarnation serves particular purpose in this material world. So every form, so we can understand Krishna has unlimited forms, not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 forms, unlimited forms. So there are unlimited Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual world, each having its own special form. They're all existing eternally. But there is one supreme form, Adi Purusham, and that is Govinda, that is Krishna. Right? That is the supreme form of the Lord, the original form of the Lord. So when Mukunda Bhagavan, so the word used Mukunda, left this earthly planet in his self-same form, Swatanva. The word used here is Swatanva. So here, Sutta Goswami is removing our final doubt. There is no doubt Krishna left a material form, but it is not that, that's not him. Whatever material form Krishna left behind on earth, that's not him. That is just material form to bewilder the atheist. So here, this is the evidence. Mukunda Bhagavan left this earthly planet in his self-same form, Swakanva. That means his original form he left. He flew across the sky and went past through the different planetary systems back to the spiritual world. He actually showed that, just so that the devotees can understand. So after Krishna left, the moment Krishna left, what happened? From that very day, he who had been waiting at the gates, who had already partially appeared, he had partially tried to infiltrate. He was tired of waiting. He took a form of a Sudra king and he came and later we will hear, later parts of this chapter, we will hear how he came as a Sudra king to attack cow and the bull and how Parikshit Maharaj came to relieve this. Kali was already infiltrating here and there. So the people and the population were already affected by Krishna's desire because Kali Yuga should come. So therefore, Kali, who had already partially appeared, the moment Krishna's lotus feet left the earth, Kali Yuga fully manifested to create inauspicious conditions. So that's the beginning of Kali Yuga, right? The moment Krishna left. But still not fully, because even after Krishna left, there were still great personalities who were like Krishna, who were still keeping Kali at bay. So, like Yudishtira Maharaj was still there, but he would be leaving very shortly. And there was Parikshit Maharaj. And after Parikshit Maharaj left only, Kali Yuga started to creep in. But this is the formal beginning of Kali Yuga. But Kali was kept on check. And Kali Yuga manifests and creates inauspicious conditions. Who? For those who are endowed with a pure fund of knowledge. We already know who are those who will be having poor fund of knowledge. Sutta Goswami already said the Muddhas. Who are the Muddhas? The Muddhas who think that Krishna is an ordinary person. The Muddhas who think that Krishna was impersonal before. Right? So, and the atheistic people and those who cannot understand Krishna, for them, Kali will manifest fully. Right? So Prabhupada mentions one can therefore neutralize the effects of Kali by keeping oneself fully under the supreme care of the personality of God. So if we immerse ourselves in 24 hours Krishna consciousness, everything that we do for the pleasure of Krishna, remembering Krishna every day, chanting Krishna's names, hearing about Krishna's pastimes, in this way, meditating on his name, fame, nama, rupa, guna, lila, in this way, Kali cannot enter into our life. So that is the understanding here. So then Maharaj Yudhishthira continues, Sutta Goswami continues the narration. Maharaj Yudhishthira was intelligent enough to understand the influence of the age of Kali, characterized by, how is Kali Yuga characterized? This picture I put here, it shows what is Kali Yuga. You can see war on the left side, and you can see exploitation on the top right side. The nature, everything in nature is exploited by industrialization, and you can see sense gratification. So sense gratification and attachment to matter on the, so this picture shows all that. So anyway, Maharaj Yudhishthira was intelligent enough to understand the influence of the age of Kali, characterized by Dharma Chakram, circle of adharma. Chakram means the disc. Dharma means irreligiosity. So the circle of irreligiosity. How is the circle of irreligiosity? It keeps going and going and going. Increasing avarice, that means greed, extreme greed, falsehood, lying, cheating, and violence. right? So this is the thing which the four pillars of dharma uphold, right? Right? Falsehood is lying and all that. Therefore, we take the four regulative principles: no gambling, because when we gamble, we start being falsehood, right? And truthfulness is destroyed, right? And then cleanliness is destroyed when cheating is going on. Our minds no longer become clean, our hearts no longer become clean, right? Illicit sexual activity and all that, so that is destroyed. Violence destroys mercy, yeah, and uh, is destroyed by extreme avarice and greed and intoxication. So this happens everywhere. It happens not only in the capital cities, in the cities. It happens not only in the state of the country. It happens not only in our own home, but it happens even within our own individual, within our own self. So that is the problem. Mhj Yudishtira understood that this is all going to happen because now Krishna is gone and Kali Yuga has set in. Right? Prabhupada describes Pandavas, however, are eternal companions of the Lord, and therefore they are more interested in the company of the Lord than anything else. It's not because they are trying to escape Kali Yuga. Pandavas, they can handle anything. They are able to withstand anything. They went through so much of difficulties, but they went through with the understanding that Krishna was always with them. So, but now that Krishna has left, it's not that they wanted to escape from the difficulties of Kali Yuga. Their, their longing for Krishna is so strong that it overpowers any other sense of duty. So Pandavas are always eternal companions of the Lord. Being an ideal king, Mhj Yudishtira wanted to retire to set an example for others. So he wanted to show how one point of time one should retire from material existence and fully focus, just like how Draupadi did, like how Arjuna did, just like how the Pandavas did. No more part-time, right? Full-time devotional service, right? Single-minded, pure devotional service, not mixed devotional service. No longer any other material profits or desires. So that he can set an example to everyone. Soon as there is some young fellow to look after the household affairs, one should at once retire from family life to uplift oneself to spiritual realization. This is what one should do. Therefore, Vedic society is arranged in a very scientific way, right? The Varnashram system is there. In the beginning, student life, brahmacharya, then one takes responsibility for family life, grihastha, right? Then one has to retire. One should not be always be in family life or in material life, material existence. So one can still have a family. It's not like one should go to the forest. Retirement simply means that one channels all his energy fully into spiritual development, no longer into material development, not into looking after, family members or whatever. All that should be relegated to the younger members of the family. So that is what Prabhupada is saying here. uh, Prabhupada even says, by the age of 50, one should get the understanding. Even in Ram Leela, Dasharat Maharaj, he was a great personality, but when he saw that his hair started to have white color hair, one day he was looking at his mirror and he saw that he had white hair many places in his head. Then he realized, okay, it's time for me to renounce, right? So he also set the example. So we should also understand, the moment we had white hair, that is our warning. Krishna is, there was a story once. One man told Yamaraj came to see him one day. Don't know how, but somehow he came. And then he told Yamaraj, you must give me warning before I die. So Yamaraj said, many of us have heard this story. Uh, so Yamaraj said, okay, and then he disappeared. And then this man waited for the warning, but the warning, he never saw the warning. And suddenly he died. And when he went to Yamaloka, he told Yamaraj, you were supposed to give me warning. You didn't give me warning. And then Yamaraj said, what? I gave warning to you. You know, I made your hair turn white. That was my first warning. And then after that, I made your health not very good. You know, old age came. So all these are your different types of warning. Then your teeth became loose. Your digestion became poor. All your senses became weak. So these are all the different types of warnings. But you chose not to heed those warnings, right? So therefore, we must understand life is not meant only to work and only to do material dharma. We all have our dharma, right? But material dharma is temporary dharma. What about the dharma for the soul? We cannot ignore the dharma for the soul, because what happens in our next life will be determined by this. So at one point of time, ideally 50 years, right? Or plus, right? At least we should think. Prabhupada describes in the purport how if one should at least dedicate the last 20 or 15 years of one's life fully into spiritual activities. Many things to do, so many scriptures to read, study, understand, hear, so many devotional activities to do, so many things we can do for preaching, so many holy places to go and visit and to witness the different pastimes of the Lord. So these are many wonderful things to do. So anyway, so what happened? So Mhj Yudishtira wisely prepared himself and to leave home, and he dressed accordingly, right? And what did he do? Thereafter, in the capital of Hastinapur, he enthroned his grandson. His grandson was Parikshit Maharaj, who was trained and equally qualified as the emperor and master of all land bordered by the sea. So that's the way, right? We relinquish responsibility to the younger generation. The older generation shouldn't be holding on to position or administration. You know, they should start giving it to the, of course, they can't simply blindly give. They have to see here what is said here. His grandson was trained and equally qualified. So one has to do that, then one can relinquish peacefully. And what did he do? Then he posted Vajra. So in Hastinapur, he put Parikshit Maharaj as the king. And in Dwarak, in Mathura, because there was still kingdom in Mathura, although the entire Yadu dynasty was already destroyed, but the kingdom was still there. So therefore, he put Vajra, son of Aniruddha. This is the grandson of Krishna. Aniruddha is one of the grandsons of Krishna, uh, and the son of Aniruddha is Vajra. So he became the king of Mathura. That's the king of Surasena. So Prabhupada tells us everyone's life must be so arranged, the last stage of life, say at least the last 15 or 20 years prior to death, can be absolutely devoted to the devotional service of the Lord, attain the highest perfection of life. It is really foolishness to engage oneself all day of one's life in material enjoyment and fruitive activities, because as long as the mind remains absorbed in fruitive work, material enjoyment, there is no chance of getting out from conditioned life or material bondage. So no one should follow the suicidal policy of neglecting one's supreme task of attaining the highest perfection of life. What is that? Prema Bhakti, namely going back to Godhead, back to Godhead. So we should not neglect this, because this life of human life is very rare. If we do this for everything else, if we use the human life for every other purpose, but we neglect this, then it is really a waste. Because next life, we do not know what kind of life we will get. So that's Prabhupada's statement. So Prabhupada showed that by his example also. He also left and he took up pure devotional, full-time devotional service to set an example for everyone. So like that, scriptures are full of examples by great personalities, right? So all of us can follow. Afterwards, Maharaj Yudishtira performed Prajapatya sacrifice and placed in himself fire of renunciation, fire for quitting household life. So we will hear about that in detail, about the journey that Yudhishthira Maharaj underwent within himself and what the Pandavas did within themselves in our next session. So I thought I could finish, but it was rather long. I didn't want to jump anything. So never mind, we can take this nicely. So we will have probably one more session before we finish this chapter 15. So we can stop here today. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions in the chat or anyone wants to say anything before we stop?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Danda pranams to you.
Prabhu, this one is very interesting. Just now you're talking about Prema Bhakti.
Mm.
Now, to my understanding, everyone focusing on moksha,
Mm.
moksha. But according to your statement, even after moksha, we are conditioned.
Yep. Because moksha, the problem with moksha is it's not, you cannot remain liberated doing nothing. That's the problem, because the nature of the soul is active. It's like this: you come out from prison, you're out of prison, but how long you want to just stand outside of the prison gate? You have to go somewhere, isn't it? You have to do something. If you just stand outside of the prison, I'm out of prison, I'm out of prison, I'm just standing outside of prison, you can stand there for a long time, but eventually you have to go somewhere. So if you don't know where else to go, if nobody's going to take you, if the whole society rejects you, and you don't want to go back to society, you hate society, then you may think, let me go back to prison. I will again. So again, he may go back and become conditioned. So that's the problem. That's how we initially came to this material world also. So if we develop aversion, towards Krishna's seva, if we see Krishna and we feel like we do not want to do anything for Krishna, we do not want to have a relationship with Krishna, that is already aversion. So the moment that aversion appears, this is not material, this aversion is there even in the spiritual world. But because this aversion appears, then the duality starts to form within us and we start to fall into this material world. So the liberated person will come down. Why he comes down? Because he develops this aversion towards Krishna's seva. So what is the way to permanently not come down? So the only way to permanently not come down is to develop Krishna prema. You must have bhakti. If you don't have bhakti and you're in the spiritual world, you will eventually come down again. It's like, two types of balloon. One balloon will fly up, another balloon will come down. So the balloon that has carbon dioxide inside will come down only, whereas the balloon that has helium gas will fly up. So if you have bhakti, it will fly up towards the spiritual world and remain there. It will not want to come down again. But if you do not have bhakti, the jiva doesn't know what to do in the spiritual world. It's like everything, because everything in the spiritual world is focused towards Krishna's enjoyment. The spiritual nature is the entire spiritual energy, everything there is all about Krishna. And if you do not have if you have aversion to Krishna, if you do not have bhakti towards Krishna, you cannot stay there for long. You feel like, what is this place? I cannot love. Let me go somewhere where I can be the boss. So you will start thinking that way, and naturally it will gravitate, and that person will fall into the material world, and he'll become conditioned. So that's the problem. So if we have bhakti, it's like a balloon which constantly protects us from ever thinking about coming to this material world. That's the only guarantee. So that's what Krishna wants. Krishna wants us to be in our eternal position. What's our eternal position? Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. Our eternal position is not liberation. Our eternal position is not to become moksha or, our eternal position is to come towards Krishna and to be his eternal servant. And that can only happen when we have bhakti, because Krishna doesn't want to force. He wants us to develop our own bhakti and come to serve him voluntarily, so that we can have loving relationship, genuine loving relationship within Krishna and us. So that's the idea. So if we are not like that, then Krishna creates the material world. Okay, you can come to the material world, you can learn about bhakti from the material world, and from here you can come back to us and you can remain eternally. Right? I hope that
Okay,
answers.
Prabhu. Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare
Understand.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Anybody else? Okay. So no other questions. Right. So if there's nothing further, again, you are free to always put in the chat, or you can just message me and I will answer any of your questions. So with that, let us chant. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadara, Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much, everyone, for patiently listening. Hope you have a nice weekend, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time again. Hare Bol.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.